What is going on, guys? Money Webby here. It is time for fantasy football. Week 1 is upon us. It is Wednesday here today, and I have my favorite plays for you guys in DraftKings, and these apply to FanDuel as well. The salaries aren't too much different. It's week 1, and I am feeling great to be giving these plays. I got some research in for my favorite quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends for you guys to throw in your lineup. So I got a few quarterbacks, few running backs, few guys at every position for you to consider. If you guys want to throw them in your lineup, then feel free to do so. If you like my advice, I mean, I'm not forcing you to play these guys, but this is what I'm thinking personally. So we're going to start off at quarterback here, going with Marcus Mariota at 6,800. I think he'll be pretty popular in this game. I like Mariota and Derek Carr in this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game, a shootout between Mariota and Carr. And against the Raiders defense, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. This guy has tremendous upside because he can do it on the ground as well. He had some high-scoring games, as you can see here, 31-27. He had another 30-point effort last year, so he has one of the highest floors on this slate. Quarterbacks that can run the ball, that can get you a ton of points in DraftKings, any format pretty much, are going to rack up the points. So high-scoring game, one of the highest over-unders on the slate. That's the thing you got to be paying attention to, the over-unders in these games. The over-under is set at 50.5 in this spot, so I really like Mariota. Easy matchup against the Raiders defense. They should be driving the ball almost every single time they have it, so I'm going to lock him in as one of my plays. And I like Derek Carr as well in a great spot. On the other side of the ball, like I said, it's just a great game flow in the spot against another bad defense in the Titans secondary. So Derek Carr doesn't have as much upside as Mariota. That's why I would lean Mariota, because he doesn't run the ball like Mariota does, and he doesn't get the rushing touchdowns. Yeah, but it's another great spot. Like I said, should be a shootout. Derek Carr is a little bit safer, though, in the sense that they throw the ball more. So Derek Carr and Mariota are definitely two guys that I love at quarterback, but their ownership should be pretty high in those spots. So in GPP, keep that in mind. And now for some lower-owned guys that I really like. First off, I love Carson Palmer at 6,000. A bit of savings on Mariota and Carr, and you get them at a lower ownership here. This game's in the Dome against a bad Detroit Lions secondary. They literally only have one guy that can do anything in their secondary. That's Darius Slay Jr., so whoever he doesn't match up on should feast in this game, whether it's John Brown, J.J. Nelson, or even if they put Darius Slay on one of those guys, and the Larry Fitzgerald just does work in the slot against the bad second cornerback. And also they got David Johnson out of the backfield. There is no one that can stop him on this whole Lions defense, so I think he'll get a lot of receiving work. So Palmer's in a good spot here. Week 1 DFS, his arm shouldn't be dead like it died last year, and he was throwing the ball a lot, especially at the beginning of last year. He threw the ball 40 times per game, like almost 50 pass attempts in some games last year towards the middle of the season, so I can see that happening in this game. It's another game with the high total, 48 over under. It should be a bit of a shootout here. The Lions offense could struggle, but I think the Cardinals offense will be putting the gas on the pedal the whole entire time. So at 6,000, some savings to go and get David and Le'Veon in your lineup. Another guy at 4,800, that's Deshaun Kaiser, the rookie quarterback. No stats to look at. You got a picture of a nice number 7. But the thing is with Kaiser, if you didn't know, he can run the ball. It's his first game, so they don't want him to pass the ball a lot, but the game flow is probably going to happen. It's going to make it happen because the Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 9 points in this game. So if they get up like 2 touchdowns, Kaiser's going to be forced to pass, be in shotgun most of the game. Then he could get some running work out of shotgun, just like on the run, like nowhere to throw to. They don't have the greatest receivers, so he could struggle to find guys open. Just run the ball, maybe run one in for a touchdown at 4,800. If he gets a rushing touchdown, that's a lot of value that he can return. So you can go and pay up like those for those studs, like I mentioned, with that quarterback at only 4,800 that offers a ton of upside at his price. So those are the 4 quarterbacks I'm looking at so far. You got Mariota, Palmer, Kaiser, and Derek Carr. Just keeping in mind that ownership on Mariota and Carr should be very high. So in GPPs, you might want to look elsewhere, but they're in great spots, so you could just plug and play and go a little bit contrarian the rest of your lineup. So keep that in mind. And moving on to the running backs now. So for my first running back, I love Todd Gurley at 6,000, kind of in the middle of the pack. And first off, well, this is something to mention. Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, they're obvious plays every single week. So I'm not going to go in depth like recommending those guys because that's kind of obvious. They're just so involved in their offense. Like if you look at Le'Veon's game log, he pretty much did work every single game, 54 in one game. Like You can pencil him in for 20 plus in this matchup with some upside on that. I think if you want those points at running back can be a little volatile because of the touchdowns really like is the difference maker for them. But so Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, the price is not bad, honestly. Like you're gonna be paying up for guys that you know are going to get points. Like, I would definitely want to pay up for them, but I'm going to recommend some other guys you can pair with them if you want to pay up somewhere else. Like, for quarterback, if you pay up, you can't really pay up for Le'Veon and David, but for some guys to pair with those guys, I'm going to give you some of those. So, Todd Gurley, like I was going off on, I love him in this game. Against the Colts, he's going to get a lot of work in here. He's probably looking at a schedule, like seeing the Seahawks, the 49ers have an improved front, then against the Cardinals, he's got some tough matchups, but this is the softest matchup Todd Gurley could ever envision against the Colts run defense. They were one of the worst in the league last year, and they did really nothing to improve that. So Todd Gurley, he should feast in this spot and get around 25 touches, and something that's a little bit understated, he's going to be catching the ball out of the backfield this year. They don't have Lance Dunbar. They signed him to be like the third down back. That guy is on IR, so Todd Gurley, he should be on the field for 3 downs. It's tough to find workhorse running backs like Gurley in today's NFL, and he is one of them, and only 6,000. So I think you can get a touchdown in this game, get around 25 to 30 touches, and get 100+ yards. Just a great spot for Gurley. He'll be a little bit pissed off after that lackluster year last year, so he's going to want to pad the stats to begin with, and I really love Sammy Watkins as well. Just a great spot for the Rams to get off on a good start in the year. But for another running back, a guy that's way too cheap, he'll probably be pretty popular, but that is Carlos Hyde, all the way down at 4,600. Like I was saying, it's tough to find workhorse running backs. Workhorse, I can't even say it for some reason. But at 4,600, this guy is going to go off this year if he stays healthy. He's a big part of the receiving game so far in the preseason. He got a receiving touchdown in the preseason, and he looked slim and explosive when I was watching the game for him. In the third week, they're suit up for the regular season. He looked great. So I think against the Panthers here, it's not a bad matchup, not great, but just for the workload he's going to get at 4,600, the price is way too good. So I can see him getting 3, 4, 5 catches in this game with around like 20 carries, especially if the game stays close, and I think it will. So at 4,600, he can get a lot of value on this price. Like I said, probably pretty popular, but I definitely like Hyde today. So Gurley and Hyde are my first 2 running backs. And for some other guys I'm looking at, you got Darren Sproles, another guy that is way too cheap here. So for Darren Sproles, they have him priced as pretty much as a backup running back, but the thing is, I think he'll be leading his team in snaps this week against the Redskins. Like the guys he's around, like Jalen Richard, like he's like literally the 3rd string running back, and some other like 2nd and 3rd string running backs. His upside isn't tremendous, but if you want to save some money, this guy catches the ball. He is great for a PPR format, and that is what DraftKings is. So you really want to target running backs that can catch the ball. And for Darren Sproles, like Garrett Blount literally looked horrendous in the preseason. I'm a Patriots fan. He is not that great a running back, so I think Sproles will be on the field the most in this game. And with Josh Norman shadowing Alshon Jeffrey probably in this spot, that should open up some work, some dump-offs for Sproles, and this should be a pretty competitive game, high scoring, so Sproles should be on the field, especially if the Eagles get down big. I'm rooting for that in this spot. You want the game flow to be positive for Sproles, so hopefully Kirk Cousins can load up the points at home in Washington and get a big lead for Sproles to be on the field. And I read some reports over the offseason actually that Darren Sproles, they wanted to find new ways for him to get the ball in open space, so I could see them some screens designed for Sproles in this game, especially if they're struggling to get anything going on offense with a revamped addition of like Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. They could come out of the gates a little bit shaky. That chemistry could not be there, so maybe just wants to dump the ball off to Sproles. So there's a ton of different ways Sproles can get involved, and at only 3,900, a nice salary saver to pay out for other positions if you want to do that. So I definitely love Sproles. And for my 4th guy, I'm going to go back up to the top here. I should have mentioned him first probably. He's the highest salary guy I like for the pair with Le'Veon and David Johnson. That's DeMarco Murray. In the same Titans and Raiders game like I was talking about earlier, a ton of GK points are available on the spot. He went berserk against the Raiders last year, 29.5 DK points. If you want to look at his stats, just look at this. 16 for 114 with a touchdown, 5 catches for 41 yards. Absolutely went off. Probably one of his best games of the year. So I can see him getting a very similar game to that. The Titans should be moving the ball every single drive, like I said earlier, and the touchdown opportunities will come with that in this high-scoring game, and he catches the ball to the backfield, so you want to get those guys on your roster, and that's what Murray does. He catches the ball, and he doesn't need many touches to be effective. He's a very effective with his touches and on this Titans offense, so I definitely like him. So DeMarco, Darren Sproles, Todd Gurley, Carlos Hyde are 4 guys I'm definitely looking at, and Le'Veon David Johnson, obviously I love them as well. So those are the running backs. So looking at wide receivers, the first guy I love, way too cheap, Robbie Anderson, 3,800, going against the Bills here. If you look at the rank, it says third, like, oh, tough defense, don't want to touch it. Hopefully people think that, but if you look more in depth, if you were paying attention over the offseason, you saw what the Bills did, pretty much trading away everyone that was good on this team. They traded away their top cornerback, Ronald Darby, so Anderson is in a great spot against this decimated defense. This is pretty much a tank-off between the Jets and the Bills. Let's see who can lose this game. So they maybe Robbie Anderson will drop every pass if they're actually tanking that bad. Maybe he'll do that on purpose, but this is an NFL player, so I think he's going to want to go off in this great matchup against the bad secondary, and he should be the #1 target, being the #1 wide receiver on the team, and also he's a deep threat. You want to target those deep threats, especially in GPP, guys that can return a lot of value and get you the touchdown to win your week, like back-to-back weeks. I don't know if I said that enough time, but 3 games in a row towards the end of last year, he got 40-yard catches. Like, if he can get a 40-plus yard touchdown here, then you're going to be looking great. So Robbie Anderson, 3,800, way too cheap. Let's go back up to the top guys. Looking at a guy at 6,000 here in that Oakland, Tennessee game, and that's pretty much the theme of this week. You want guys in those games. They'll probably be pretty chalky, but in cash games, you gotta put them in your lineups, and that's Michael Crabtree. You're saving 1,200 on him compared to Cooper. He's been better than Cooper over the last 2 full seasons in fantasy football, but obviously in DFS, things kind of change a little bit. Cooper has more upside, but if you're paying 1,200 more for that upside, I don't know if it's really worth it, but I definitely love both these guys in this great matchup against the Titans, ranked 31st against wide receivers last year. They only added Logan Ryan, not a great cornerback, pretty decent. But whoever Logan Ryan doesn't match up against, Crabtree kind of moves around. So I'm guessing that Logan Ryan doesn't follow him around because Crabtree's not like a dominant #1. They might put Ryan on Crabtree, but I'm expecting Ryan to stay on one side and Crabtree to move around. He goes in the slot some, then goes left, right, whatever. You never know where he's going to be on the field. So Crabtree matching up one of those lesser cornerbacks can definitely eat in this game. Against the Titans last year, he won for 102 on 11 targets. Very good performance there, and he is the red zone threat for this Raiders offense. So a team with the high total like the Raiders in this game being the red zone threat, that is definitely beneficial for your lineups because you want touchdowns and DFS. So Michael Crabtree, great play at 6,000. I think he'll get around like 100 yards and probably a touchdown as well. So moving on, the next guy I love is Doug Baldwin here going against the Packers. We all know how bad this pass defense is, ranked 32nd against wide receivers, dead last year. And Doug Baldwin, yeah, so the Packers, they have a pretty solid run defense, and the secondary just horrendous. So Doug Baldwin, he should be heavily targeted in this game. He's the #1 option on this Seattle team. So this is a great spot. This game has a high total as well. I believe it's 51 points right now. So Doug Baldwin, I'm expecting like 11 targets, and he's a very effective with his targets throughout his career. Very high catch rate, so a very safe play at 6,700 with a ton of upside in this game. So Doug Baldwin, another guy that I love. And last but not least, we're going with Kelvin Benjamin at 5,900. So tight end this week, it's looking gross like it usually does. It's a week where you just want to pay down for some value guys, punt at, and then pay up for the top guys at other position. So Zach Ertz is my first guy at 3,500. He'll probably be pretty popular against the Redskins here, but a great spot. They ranked 29th against tight ends last year. And if you look back to last year, I mean, you can't really take it for that much, but the week he had against them towards end of last year, week 14, he had 10 catches on 13 targets for 112 yards, so a great game there. I think he'll get heavily targeted in this game as well. He's a safety valve for Carson Wentz with those new targets in there. Torrey Smith, only really a deep threat. They got rid of Jordan Matthews, so I think Ertz will benefit the most from that loss of Jordan Matthews. Take those in between, like, intermediate routes from Jordan Matthews and really get a lot of looks in this game. And like I mentioned before, Josh Norman will be on Alshon Jeffrey, so I think he'll lock him up for the most part, and Ertz should have a very good week here. So I think he'll get some catches and just be a great play at 3,500. So I love Zach Ertz. And for another guy that's a little bit cheap here at 3,100, that's CJ Fedorowicz in a similar situation as Zach Ertz. This is like a terrible matchup for the wide receivers on the Texans. DeAndre Hopkins going against very good cornerbacks. And AJ Boye on the Texans last year, he was extremely good. So kind of a grudge match for him against his old team on the Jags. And also they got Jalen Ramsey. So I think CJ Fedorowicz will benefit from those great cornerbacks on the outside. And Tom Savage should be looking for CJ Fedorowicz early and often with those cornerbacks on the outside. So I love him to rack up some catches in this PPR format. So Fedorowicz and Ertz are my two guys at tight end. So those are my guys that target in DraftKings this week. Week 1, NFL DFS. It's a great slate, 13 games. I feel very good about it. A ton of value plays on the slate, so you can pay up for those studs and enter those value plays in your lineups and go win the $1 billion. And if you win the $1 billion off my plays, you can just give me a little bit of a cut, maybe like $10,000. That would be good for me. So I hope you guys do great this week. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, got anything out of value on this one, and also subscribe down below if you haven't already to get these plays every single week for NFL DFS. I hope it's a great year this year. I'm excited to do this. This is my first year giving out DraftKings advice for NFL. Just started my channel towards the middle of NBA season. So NFL, my favorite sport. I've been doing it for the past like 7 years for a year long, and DFS I've been playing for the last like 3-4 years. So I'm very excited to be doing this, and I hope you guys win some money along the way off my plays. So yeah, so like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I wish you guys great luck on this week. Maybe I'll be doing a live stream towards Sunday, whatever, before they ask some questions on what I'm thinking, any updates on the plays or whatever like that. So yeah, good luck, so like, subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week.